stay tuned because for the next 60 minutes, Motorsports Unlimited is on the air. Hi, I'm Jerry Bryant, and these are the lovely ladies of motorsports. And all this hour, we're going to have 60 minutes of action-packed excitement. All kinds of exciting things will happen. And we got the famous Bill Wildt, and we got all kinds of other good stuff that's happening all this hour. Motorsports Unlimited, 60 minutes of non-stop action. So let's go to the studio right now, huh?
Thanks, Jerry, and hi, everybody. Welcome to the studio headquarters of Chicagoland's most watched, most talked about Access television series. I'm Samantha Bentley, and this is the 936th edition of Motorsports Unlimited. Today's episode is part 5 of our series within Motorsports Unlimited titled Motorcycling Rediscovered, detailing Bill's motorcycle trip to upstate New York in the summer of 2004. During the first 4 episodes, we've explained the joy of the trip and its purpose. At the end of last week's show, Bill was taking us to a place he cherished from his childhood memories. He called it the Gorge, but explained it's really named Wintergreen Park. Let's join him about 30 minutes from Carlisle in Canajoharie, New York, as he visits the Gorge for the first time in 50 years.
Well, as I hope you can see, we have arrived at one of the very important destinations that I had in mind when I began this trip. I don't know if I've mentioned it before or not, but there was a place that we used to go to as kids 2 or 3 times a year. Our parents would bring us over. Right now we're about a half an hour from Carlisle. We're in the town of, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see this or not, it's Canajoharie, and that's pronounced Canajoharie. We're in the town of Canajoharie, and the place is actually officially named Wintergreen Park, as the sign up there indicates, Wintergreen Park. But all of the local people always called it the Gorge, and you'll see why, hopefully, when we get down there. I remember this is a very special place when I was a youngster, to come here and go swimming and all. I'm not going to try to describe because you're going to see it in a few short minutes. But anyhow, this is something that I've always kept in my heart over the years, that I always wanted to go back and see the Gorge again. And that's actually what we're going to do.
Fascinating. Hi, I'm Patty Borowitz, wondering if I'll do something like this 50 years from now. Let's ride with Bill as he finds his way to the Gorge for the first time in 50 years.
Okay, we're going in. Now, as a youngster, I remember they made a left turn going in. I didn't exactly remember what the approach was, but you made a left turn going in, and it was an immediately steep downhill, and you could see the park on the right side. Now let's see how well my memory serves me after 50 years. Well, I can see it goes down. I hope the audience can see that. I can see it goes down. Oh yes, this is what I remember. Except on the right, all these trees, these overgrown trees and that, they weren't here. You could actually see the park down there. But this looks all like relatively new growth. I don't see anything really big, except maybe a couple of them, and those were probably here then. But you could see the park off to the right. As we would come down to the bottom of this really steep incline. Now this is kind of the park proper, where they did picnicking and volleyball net and all that sort of thing. The thing that I most remember really about this part of the park was the fact that there was a bed of pine needles everywhere, and I look over on the ground there underneath the trees. I can see the bed of pine needles is still there. Picnic benches are there. This is all very familiar to me. One thing that is not familiar to me is, as I look ahead here, they have a road now going down through those trees. Now, I don't recall that being here. As I recall, this is, like I say, was where the picnic area was and all that. And then between the trees that you should be seeing, I'm going to point at them, I don't know if you can see that or not, there would be, like, you could see where the path was, where people went down to the gorge. And it was kind of a steep climb. In some places you had to kind of put your butt on the ground and kind of scoot down a little bit to get down to the gorge. Now, it looks like they made an improvement here because there's actually, looks like a road that goes down there. Although I'm seeing a sign there that I don't like. It says no swimming, and boy, as kids, we spent hours swimming in the gorge. It was great. Well, let's take a look. Let's see what they've got. I can imagine it was hard to build a road in here because this was really steep going down. Oh Oh yeah, it's the... Hope I'm supposed to be on here. No, I guess I see a couple of cars down there through the trees, so I guess it's okay. Boy, this must have been a job cutting this road through here. We used to just scoot down that, what you see on the right over there, kind of on our butts and that, but the road certainly gives it more access, that's for sure. And as we come into this area, oh, there's a sign I don't like seeing. No trespassing, dangerous waterfalls, use scenic trail only. Now I'm not really sure what that means because the gorge, I don't know if the audience can see it, the gorge is through those trees, the water is running down there. I'll move my head around a little bit in case that helps you see it. I don't know if that means you're not supposed to go down there, or kind of what it means to me, no trespassing, but that is the gorge. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I think we'll stop and try to figure it out.
Bill sounds disappointed about the no trespassing and no swimming signs. But let's check it out with him.
Well, this is it. This is the gorge. This is the thing that I remember so well from my childhood. Really, the place, the gorge itself, hasn't changed very much, but as far as how you can use it has changed, that you can't swim down here or anything. It's really a shame. I'm going to try to explain a little bit. If you see the wall on the other side, and as you go further down the gorge that way, this wall is at least 100 feet high on both sides, and it's all shale. Shale is very much like a blackboard, those flat, very flat rocks, and it's all shale. And as the river over the centuries has cut through it more and more and more, the floor has come down further and further and further. But when you walk out here, that's why it was so nice to swim here. It was almost like a man-made thing because it was like walking on a blackboard. Very much the same thing as the stones that we have here. These are all very flat, like a blackboard. And to me, it was very, very cool. Plus the fact that the water is, most places, is 6 to 12 inches deep, and then where it goes over little waterfalls, like maybe sometimes a foot waterfall or 2 feet or 3 feet, and it formed a little pool after that where you could swim in, because the water was so, how would I call it, not thick, that the sun beating on it, really the water was really warm. So it was quite refreshing to sit under the little waterfalls and all that. Now granted, way down further, even back in 1954, they were always finding teenage boys and that trying to go down and challenge themselves at the big waterfall down there, and there was a drowning back then, but apparently there have been more drowning since then, so they've kind of closed the thing for swimming and all that, and people just come down to picnic and look at it because it's obviously very, very pretty to look at. It's just, like I say, it's sort of a shame. I kind of had thoughts of maybe getting in the water myself. Once again, the locals all call this the gorge, but the official name is Wintergreen Park in the town of Canajoharie, New York.
It's beautiful. Bill found a couple of pictures from when you could still swim there. Janine?
Bill located a couple of family pictures taken at the gorge in 1952. On the left is his little brother Eric playing in one of the smaller waterfalls. On the right is his cousin Joyce standing in front of one of the larger waterfalls further downstream. It's really a shame you can't swim here anymore.
It sure is. Now, before we leave the gorge, Bill wanted to take a moment to chat.
I want to take just a few minutes here while we've got the serenity of this very peaceful, very pretty place that we call the gorge and that everybody else calls Wintergreen Park. I've been wanting to mention a bunch of things. It's one of the problems of being 61 years old is you forget everything. So I've been kind of writing them down a little bit so that I could make sure that I mentioned them. One of the things that I wanted to mention, if I've laid this program out the way I think I'm going to do it, you've already heard about the road trip that my friend Todd and I did 40 years ago, and what a disaster it was. Now I say disaster because it was a disaster. We never did get to where we were going. We had incredible mechanical breakdowns, destroyed his bike completely. Mine was pretty well beat by the time we got back, and all the rest of it. On the other hand, I still hold those memories of some 40 years ago vividly. So it wasn't a total disaster. It was a pretty cool adventure, but certainly not something we wanted to repeat again real quick. So what's the difference? This 40 years later, I'm taking this trip. Well, there were three basic villains of what defeated us on that first road trip. The first one was the lack of reliability of the motorcycles. My BSA and his Norton were terrible. They vibrated and shook like crazy. They shook everything off. You couldn't go 3-4 miles. You didn't have to tighten something and adjust something and all that. It was terrible. It just took forever because of all the mechanical problems, mechanical breakdowns and all that. So the lack of reliability of the motorcycles was really one of the things that contributed. In fact, we said we used to laugh at guys with saddlebags and windshields and all that, and by about halfway through that trip, we would have traded both of our bikes for one with a saddlebag and windshield. It became clear to us why you needed that stuff. The second thing that defeated us was that we weren't prepared. We didn't have any kind of bags or anything like that. What we did is we bought sleeping bags and rolled all the clothes up we were taking with us in the sleeping bags, and then bungee corded onto the back of the bike, a little bit on the back of the seat, and then to the tail light and the fender area, and bungee corded it. And the bike shook so hard that these things would work their way off to the right or work their way off to the left. No matter how we bungee corded them, they would eventually slip down at one point, get into the wheel, throw clothes all over the highway, stop, pick everything up. So we just were not prepared well enough for touring purposes. I can tell you these bags are great, and if you want to know how many bags you need and everything like that, as much as you can get. The only thing I would have made different is I would have tried to gotten that Nelson rig bag that doesn't really work with these are the Nelson rig bags down here. It doesn't really work with this. This is they made it as part of a set for the more modern sport bikes, but I still think I could make it work, and that would give, instead of the smaller tail pack like this, it would be all the way to the edge of the other bags, and I could certainly use the additional room. Maybe it's just because I've got so much video equipment and all that I have to take with, but it would certainly be helpful. Another thing that I've discovered with these bags and all that, I kind of wondered why so many compartments. I mean, there are zipper compartments everywhere here. There's a zipper compartment here, zipper compartment here, over here. This zips off the top. Underneath it, another layer, zipper, zipper. Same thing here, zipper compartment here, and over here. Compartments everywhere, and that struck me as odd. It said to myself, seems to me that you just, make it a larger space. Well, boy, as it turns out, these people really do know what they're doing. You need that. For example, of course, 61 years old, heart patient, I've got to have my medication. So that's in a zipper pouch over here. When it's time to take a pill, I don't have to tear everything apart. I just pull that one thing open. Shooting the video, I keep the video camera here and the helmet cam stuff under here. So it depends on which layer I bring up of what I'm going to work on. Sweatshirt for the night. Compartment over here, light jacket here. So you don't have to pull everything apart every time. If you think about it ahead of time, a little bit of how you're going to do it, the stuff is all real handy every time you need it. So real good thinking on the part of the people that put this stuff together, and that helps. The third thing, that was the second thing that defeated us. First thing was the lack of reliability of the motorcycles. Second thing was the not really being touring prepared. Oh, by the way, windshield, absolutely essential. Got to have it. I'm not the least bit fatigued. I've run 900 miles, been here for 2 days, feel great. Really works very, very well. So I did want to mention that. Now let's see what else. Folks, in Illinois, probably you guys have already forgotten what a pain in the neck helmet laws are. Now I didn't have to wear a helmet in Illinois, didn't have to wear a helmet in Indiana or Ohio or Pennsylvania. Got into New York and they're real strict about it. You got to wear the helmet. What a pain in the neck this is. I think we've all forgotten what a pain in the neck is. So I want, kudos to Abate, however you want to say it. Kudos to those guys for all the hard work they've done fighting these stupid laws that really are just non-riders inflicting their fears on riders. And I don't want to go through the whole thing right now, and I understand the argument and the safety, blah, 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 blah. We don't have time for it all right now. All I want to say is everybody ought to be a member of Abate and make sure we don't have helmet laws coming back to us now, because this really is a pain in the neck. You can't go any place without showing up like you just pulled your head out of the bed, like in the morning, your hair all mashed like when you got up in the morning. When you get someplace, you've got to drag the helmet around with you, walking around like having a basketball in your hand. Just a pain in the neck in every sense of the word. So once again, kudos to the Abate guys and all the guys that have done so much hard. Not just the Abate guys, there's lots of clubs joined in with that to fight the helmet laws. Well done, guys. I want to make sure we mentioned that. Something nobody mentioned to me when I was setting up for this trip, and I'm kind of surprised. They have things that are half covers for motorcycles. They've got full covers, of course, but they've got half covers. And I saw them in the books when I was looking through for the bags and all that, and I thought, gee, that's odd. Why would we want just a half cover? Why not just get a full one? Well, I understand now. When you're touring, space is at a premium. You don't want to give up the space that a full cover would take up. But a half cover, you can kind of ball that up smaller, I imagine, and tuck it away in one of these zippered compartments or something. That way, when you have a situation like I did last night where it's going to rain all night, you can just pull the half cover over the motorcycle and keep the water from raining on the bike. So half cover is probably a good idea. Now, I don't know. It's possible. I haven't ever looked at one. It's possible a half cover is too bulky to take with you, too. But it just seemed to me that would be a good idea, because I was looking for an open hardware store to buy a plastic drop cloth, and nobody was open. Wanted to mention that. Also, Cooch, our good friend Bob Kuchera, Cooch from Toys for Tots and J.C. Whitney, who is an expert touring rider, and for that matter, expert camper. He does a lot of four-wheeling and all that sort of thing. When I told him what kind of bike I bought, he said, "Oh, that's a great bike." He says, "You'll love it." He says, "I had a GS 850. They made these in, apparently, as I've come to find out, the GS 650, the GS 850, and a GS 1100 also. It's a shame they don't make this line anymore. This is a wonderful bike." And Coach says, "Yeah," he says, "I can't." He says, "I don't know why I ever got rid of mine." He says, "I wish I hadn't." He says, "I called it when I had it. I thought it was the BMW of Japanese bikes. Absolutely reliable, shaft drive, silent, just worked perfectly." So it kind of, I will never get rid of this one. I'll keep this one. But boy, wouldn't be bad to have a GS 1100 if I could find one of those. And I'm sure they're around. I'll go to work on eBay and see if I can find something, because I'd love to have one with a ton more power. So I wanted to mention that also. Oh, when I was coming here, I know I should have gotten more helmet cam footage, because the scenery is drop dead gorgeous. I kind of wondered if maybe I had exaggerated my memory as how I was with a child, how New York State was as far as being hilly and beautiful and all that. Well, I didn't exaggerate it at all. It was drop dead gorgeous, and I really didn't want to stop and hook up the helmet thing and all that, because I lose an hour when I do that. Actually, it was so beautiful, I just wanted to ride and ride and ride and ride and ride. And then I knew the weather was coming, and I said, because I was going to kind of save the helmet cam for later, I said, no, the weather's coming. I want to keep just ride. It's beautiful. I will tell you this. If you want a nice run for a motorcycle group, or how about this for a street roadsters, hot rods, street rods, roadsters particularly, go to Buffalo, New York, and go from Buffalo to Carlisle, where I'm at now. And it's so cool. You get 5 or 6 miles out of Buffalo, and it starts getting hilly. And the further east you go, the more hilly it gets and the more beautiful it gets. And some of them, it's exactly the kind you like. So they're big enough and impressive enough to kind of take your breath away a little bit. Not terrify you, but you will definitely gulp and roll the throttle off as you crest a hill. So it's exactly the right thing. Gorgeous, gorgeous scenery, a little bit breathtaking, but not terrifying. It's wonderful. And the further east you go, the better it gets. All right, what else did I forget that I wanted to mention? That one I don't want to talk about yet, because I'm not out of the woods on that one yet. Oh, another thing, you might have noticed the white long sleeve shirt I had. That's a real good idea for touring, by the way. Even though I was heavily coated with sunblock 45, I still ended up sunburning my arms pretty good on the first 2 days, so much so it was actually hurting to have them in the sun. So I found a Walmart, because I had to do something with the camera, something else I want to mention in a second. I had to do something with my camera as far as saving pictures. And I found a white long sleeve, kind of a t-shirt sort of a thing, white long sleeve, and that thing has been wonderful. I kind of lived with it on the road, because it keeps the sun off my arms that are pretty sunburned. And what I was stopping there for was something else I want to say. I got to look up the number of this camera. I bought it's been about 6 months ago, a Kodak 5.0 megapixel camera. Boy, what a delight this thing is to use. And the way it works, it didn't work out that way for me. They told me that when it fills up with pictures, you could take it to Walmart and they would make a CD for you, and then you can clear it and take pictures again. So I had the thing filled with pictures, and I go to the Walmart and they say, "Oh, no, you have to have it on the memory card. You've got it in the memory of the camera. You got to have it on the memory card." So I bought a memory card that doesn't wipe out what's in the camera, and I'm shooting the rest of the still pictures. Hopefully I've shown you some still pictures too as I've gone, and put them on this memory card that's supposed to, at highest quality, take well over 100 pictures. But I think it's pretty cool that you can take that memory card any place you want to, any place in the country, to the Walmart, give the card to them, they'll make a CD for you, and then you can use the memory card over again and take the CD with you with all the pictures. So, pretty cool idea. Didn't exactly work out for me the way I thought it was going to, but I do get the idea. Okay, did I mention everything? Yeah, everything but the one item that I don't want to talk about yet, because we're not out of the woods on that. Let's see. Oh, I mentioned the two things that defeated us on the first road trip. One of the things, the lack of reliability of the bikes. Second thing was not being prepared with the bags and all that. And the third thing was drunkenness. But that was sort of self-inflicted. Come on, we were 22, 23 years old. What do you expect?
It was 21, Bill. And don't use that as an excuse. You and your friend Todd could have been killed on the first road trip. This one is so much nicer, and apparently, with maturity, you learn there is a time and place for drinking. And a motorcycle road trip is definitely not the time nor place. Young males just don't think straight. That's why they have us, to tell them what they should do. It was time to bid farewell to the gorge.
Well, I must say that's pretty disappointing. That was an area where myself and my brother and my sister spent a lot of time swimming. and it was wonderful. It was pretty special. And now they don't let you swim in there, and you can't go in there. That's really too bad. I guess that at the time we had heard occasionally of a teenager drowning. There's a big waterfall about a quarter of a mile down from here, and we heard of a teenager drowning. I've talked to some people now, and they said that a lot of people drown. Now there's people that are a little closer to the water, so apparently I'm not the only one that cheats a little bit. But as I understand it, apparently there have been a number of drownings in that, and so they just think it's unsafe. Although the area that we used to go into, it was easily a quarter mile long, was really quite nice. And there really wasn't any danger of drowning there. They had waterfalls that were 1 foot and 2 foot and 3 foot, but certainly nothing big enough to hurt anyone. That was further down, and yes, some of the daring teenage boys did go down there to show off. Well, it couldn't have been easy to build this road, though. You almost need a dirt bike for this. It's very top-heavy touring. The rig doesn't really want to be tossed around the way you do a motocross bike. Well, I'm glad I came. I'm disappointed that you can't go swimming in there anymore. I really wanted to go swimming, but I'm glad I came and had a look at the gorge. It does bring back a lot of old memories. Has it changed? Yeah, a little bit. In some ways, a little nicer. Having that road go down there is nice, but on the other hand, the no trespassing, that's a shame, because that's the primary feature of this place, is that little river. I don't know if it's big enough to be called a river. I'll call it that, or large creek, or little river. Cutting through the shale was always the attraction here. But it's still very pretty and still well worth the trip. I'm glad I made it a point to come here. It's been, last time I was here was 1954, and it's 2004 now as we tape this, and it really did prompt a lot of memories.
And now we leave Wintergreen Park. Let's ride with Bill as he returns to Carlisle.
As I was finishing up the piece I taped in the gorge, I noticed someone coming up out of the water. Perhaps you noticed. I also saw some other people, youngsters to be sure, walking in the water, apparently coming from the waterfalls farther downstream. I asked them about the no trespassing and no swimming signs and was told most of the locals ignore them. It seems common knowledge to be the signs were placed there following lawsuits from the families of people who drowned in the big falls. I was tempted to go back, but thought better of it. First, I had no one to watch my bike with all of my worldly possessions on it while I made my way down the gorge. And second, the trip was going so well, I didn't want to end up in cuffs. I must be getting old. One thing is sure, I'm just about the right age to enjoy the beautiful upstate New York countryside. I must admit it, I couldn't have enjoyed it 40 years ago on my first motorcycle road trip. Putting aside all of the mechanical problems and lack of preparation calamities, Todd and I spent much of the time racing each other. Oh, they were goofy races to be sure, what with the overall gearing being so high, but they were races nonetheless. We had little rules like if we were going to race from a third or fourth gear roll, whether it was going to be laying down on the tanks or sitting up. Every corner was a challenge to see who dared run through it the fastest. The only scenery I remembered vividly was the St. Louis Arch. It made quite an impression on me. Now, here I am, 40 years later, 61 instead of 21, savoring every tree. The curves in the road that once beckoned me to find the limit of tire adhesion now charm me with their seductive curves. Something to enjoy, not compete with. Yes, I'm getting old, but it's not all bad. I'm seeing things I looked at before but never really saw. Ah, there is a Route 20 route sign. I better stop and figure out which way to Carlisle. Alright, I figured it out. We should be headed for Carlisle. By the way, I wish you could experience these hills instead of just seeing them on television. Television just doesn't do it justice. For someone living in the Midwest, the constant climbing and descending is very cool. You have to feel it as well as see it. There's the sign. Yep, Carlisle.
Once back in Carlisle, Bill headed for Cobleskill to spend the night. The ride between Carlisle and Cobleskill is so pretty, he wanted to take everyone along. So hold on as he goes by the Carlisle post office and turns off Route 20.
As I make the turn off of Route 20, you can see the long, sloping meadow that makes up the school grounds of my old one-room schoolhouse. I mentioned earlier, as youngsters, we all had our sleds at school during the winter because it was a great run from behind the school all the way to Route 20. The teacher always warned us about staying away from 20. I'm sure you can imagine what great recesses we had during the winter. I would guess this couldn't be done anymore, given our litigious society. Too bad. It was great fun. The Carlisle to Cobleskill trip is awesome. It takes about 10 minutes, and it couldn't be prettier. Although I remind you again, you really have to experience these hills in person to really enjoy them. I looked at some of the helmet cam footage in the motel, and I can see the lack of 3D capability coupled with our inability to transmit the feel of this roller coaster through the countryside, not to mention the smells as we move past farms and meadows. It's something you really have to do yourself. Oh, you can't do that? Well,
Let's try it this way then. Hold on and try to imagine yourself winding through the countryside on this winding road. Try to imagine the feel as you crest the hill and the sensation of dropping as you descend. I hope you're enjoying the ride. There is a certain solitude to motorcycle touring that gives you an opportunity to enjoy the scenery without interruption. Notice I just put my turn signal on. Now, let's see how long it takes me to notice I didn't turn it off. Most bikes don't have automatic canceling turn signals, and for the life of me, I can't seem to remember to turn them off. Particularly during the daylight when the indicator can't be easily seen in the sunlight. Designing automatic canceling turn signals for a bike is a technically difficult problem. Manufacturers have tried a variety of ways to do it, some more successful than others, but none completely satisfactory. My own thinking on this would be to take advantage of a GPS signal to cancel them when direction changes significantly. Or maybe I should just learn to remember to turn them off. There, I finally noticed it. Not too bad. I've left them on for hours already. Cobleskill is located in a valley, and the descent has been continuous for the past several minutes. I wish it were possible to broadcast the up and down feelings of traversing this countryside. You'll just have to use your imagination. I just stopped here for a moment to show you we are back in Cobleskill.
After stopping at the Cobleskill sign, Bill returned to the motel. had to clean up because the Palmatiers were going to join him for dinner. He wrote about it in his journal. Janine?
It was my last night in the Carlisle-Cobleskill area. Tomorrow morning, I'll be heading home. I had dinner in Cobleskill with the Palmatier family at an Italian restaurant. I was surprised to learn no one knew what mostaccioli was. They looked at me like I made up a word. I started describing what I was talking about when a woman at the next table helped. They call it penna here. That's a new one on me. Anyway, it was a delightful evening, and I felt I'd made new friends. We called it a night.
The next day, Bill made one last run up and down Route 20 to take one more look.
That's Route 20 ahead. One last look. It's funny the things you remember. Just past the post office on the left is a place where they park snow plows and highway maintenance stuff. There is a steep hill going down to it, and on many occasions my friends and I took my homemade soapbox car there to coast down the steep hill. There it is on the left. I remember it was something of an all-afternoon job to drag it from the Whitestone. I sort of thought I might have exaggerated how far this was, but now that I see it, I'm pretty impressed we were able to do it at all. We're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds, along with my 3.5-year younger brother, Eric. We'll talk more about the soapbox racers in a moment. First, notice on the left is the remains of the Soudal garage. Just on this side of it is the small road I was looking for to get my bearings the night I was looking for the Whitestone. To the right, of course, is the Whitestone, the red cedar building for those just joining us.
And this was the Bywater garage.
The Bywaters were friends of my parents. In fact, all the little businesses along this stretch of Route 20 were friendly competitors. In fact, the place coming up on the left is the Plagues. It was a restaurant and motel and had gas pumps. No, not there. It's still quite a ways up on the left. I remember many times my parents getting in the car to run up and down Route 20 in the evening to see who filled up. The Plagues often passed my parents going the other way to see how many the Whitestone or the Jensens farther down had. Being full by 7 o'clock in the evening was a point of pride. There it is, on the left. As I said, it was a restaurant, motel, and they had gas pumps. It's interesting. My parents never put in gas pumps because with the Bywaters on one side and the Soudals almost across the street on the other side selling gas, they didn't think it would be right to try to take their business. They were competitors, but as I said, friendly competitors. While you're enjoying the upstate New York scenery, I want to get back to the soapbox racers we used to build as kids. My parents had no fabricating equipment because building the Whitestone didn't require any of that kind of work. They had 2x4s and nails, but nothing I could use for an axle. I always used a 2x4 for the axles, then drove a huge spike in the ends of them to attach the wheels using the spikes as sort of spindles. One of the most frustrating things about doing it this way was that most of the time the wheels didn't stay on long enough for us to drag the racers to the hill. In retrospect though, it was probably a good thing. The few times we did get it to the hill, which was actually a driveway for the highway equipment, I went down so fast it seemed disaster was imminent. Fortunately, the cars never made it all the way to the bottom before the wheels came off. Good thing, I suppose, the cars didn't have any sort of brakes. It's interesting the things that pop into your mind you haven't thought of in 50 years. I'm trying hard to recall the names of people who were family friends back then. There was a woman on one of the farms who baked lemon meringue pies. Sometimes I'd go with my parents when they would pick them up for the restaurant. The smell was wonderfully unforgettable. It's odd I don't remember her name.
There's a sign on the road, Honda Speedway.
With the popularity of NASCAR, we sometimes forget where the big stars come from. It's the local short tracks, like Fonda Speedway. I remember the name Fonda Speedway, but I don't think I ever went there. My first exposure to stock car racing was at a track called Sharon Springs Raceway. Sharon Springs is a small town about 15 miles west of Carlisle. I'll pick that story up in a second. I spotted a sign I wanted to comment on.
The sign here up on the right, where it says next half mile, and it shows the tractor trailer, the semi, shows it on a steep decline. Take these signs, if you travel this area, take these signs very seriously. It's a particular problem for the semis. Many of them have lost their brakes on the way down. If they don't downshift before they start down the top of the hill, the brakes will be gone by the time they get to the end.
The New England countryside is famous among truck drivers for using up brakes, so a word to the wise if you ever travel in this area. Now let's see, I think there's a place I can turn up there. It's probably time to turn and start heading back. Pretty, isn't it? Oh yes, my first exposure to stock car racing. Sharon Springs is a resort town, and my sister, who was 5 years older than me, used to waitress there during the summer months. One day, she decided to take my brother and I to the races in Sharon Springs. I was mesmerized, to say the very least, and I haven't forgotten it in 50 years. Interesting enough, I could find no one who ever heard of Sharon Springs Raceway. That's not the kind of thing I would remember incorrectly. It's been 50 years, and I suppose memories fade quickly after a track closes. Even in our own area, there are people who don't remember Santa Fe Speedway, and it's been gone for less than 10 years. Anyway, even if no one remembers, I know there was a Sharon Springs Raceway. I just wish you could feel the three-dimensional nature of this terrain. You are almost continuously climbing or descending. I guess it's the same thing I say on Motorsports Unlimited all the time about motorsport events. Television can only bring you a taste of these things. You really have to go in person to enjoy them. One more thing I recalled as I visited my boyhood home, the first time I saw a sports car. It was 1952. I was 9 years old. We kids were playing in the back part of our property, one of the advantages of having 4 acres. My dad came back and said, "Hey Bill, you like cars. You should look at the one in the Whitestone parking lot." I did indeed like cars, and over the years, when my parents had a customer with an interesting car, they would call it to my attention. I remember seeing my first midget this way. One of our customers had it on a trailer. Anyway, I was talking about my first sports car sighting. Now you have to remember, this was 1952. There really were no sports cars in America before World War II, and following the war, after the European countries were starting to get back on their feet, sports cars started showing up on our landscape. My dad led me to the parking lot. As I walked around the Whitestone, there it was, a bright red MGTC, wire wheels and all. You have to remember, this was before there was a Corvette or a Thunderbird. There were no two-seat sports cars in America. The MG was beautiful. To me, it looked fast and racy. It was midsummer and the top was down. My mother didn't quite get it. She thought it was a cute little baby car. I didn't see it that way at all. I remember thinking, sports car, huh? I like these. The memory is still fresh after well over 50 years.
And now it was time to leave.
Well, I've completed my visit to my boyhood home of Carlisle, New York, and Route 20. I'm going to collect my thoughts as I ride back to Chicago. I'm very happy I did this. Very, very pleased. I've had a wonderful time. I've had sun. I've had sunburn. I've had rain. I've had rain suit. This morning it's a little bit cold. It's about 64, 65 degrees. Hopefully it'll warm up as the day goes by, but it doesn't really make any difference. I'm prepared for it. Thank you, Cooch, for reminding me to bring a leather jacket. If need be, I'll don a leather jacket. Again, I'm going to have to collect my thoughts on the way home. I'm glad to, really, really delighted to see David and Denise and little Samantha bringing life to the old Whitestone. I think it would have been worse if it was collapsed and laying there in ruins the way many of the places are. So that pleases me a little bit. There's not much left of it, but the main building is left. So a little bit of what my parents worked so hard for over a decade back in the late 40s and early 50s
what they had accomplished, and a little part of it lives on, and that does please me. Time to get on the road now. If all goes well, I should be back in Chicago Sunday night. It's right now Friday morning.
Bill said when he started this series within Motorsports Unlimited, he was going to take us along. Once again, hold on.
As I pulled away from the sign marking the eastern edge of Carlisle and headed west to begin my journey home, I did so with mixed emotions. There were so many things that pleased me, I was surprised to find myself a little saddened. Route 20 was a very busy highway before the interstate highway system opened. As children, our parents were always warning us to be careful crossing the highway. I remember waiting many minutes for a break in traffic to dart across. The heavily traveled main road from New York to Chicago supported thousands of little businesses like the Whitestone, the Plagues, the Bywaters, the Sudals, the Jensens, and so on. Today, none of the bustling activity I recall from my youth is here. Seeing these places without the gas pumps, the motels, the cabins, and of course the hustle-bustle of human activity left me with something of a vacant feeling. I was glad so many things were there, but the most important part, the people, were not. I moved to the left lane for a final peek at the Whitestone just past what used to be the Bywater Garage. By the way, as we pass the Whitestone on the left, it's red cedar sided now, not white. It's a long story. You're supposed to watch every week. Anyway, as we pass it, take note of the small road just past the old Sudal garage on the right. Funny how you remember something like that. Actually, I remember that being the road to the gorge. In many ways, physically, things have changed very little. It's hard to believe the building on the right, the post office, is still the same, although it used to also be a general store. It's really hard to believe my old one-room schoolhouse is still there after 50 years, and yes, it's just one big room. Farther up on the right is the Jensen Motel. There's a home in front of it now, and the motel is obviously unused and has been that way for many years. I remember the Jensens because of their daughter, an absolutely drop-dead, gorgeous knockout named Noreen. But she was 5 years older than me. Wonder whatever happened to her. She'd be 66 by now. Now on the left is the automatic transmission repair shop, whose owner, Richard Buffo, was the man who provided me with directions to the gorge. Nice guy. Route 20 is sure empty now. No traffic at all. Hard to believe it was once as heavily traveled as 294 in Illinois or 8090 in western Indiana. I have much to think about on my trip home, but for right now, I just want to enjoy this lovely upstate New York scenery.
I've always heard upstate New York is beautiful, and Bill sure proved that. Unfortunately, as always, we're out of time too soon, with only enough left to acknowledge the fine work of our award-winning production team, including Chuck Itzenthaler, Sue Cassanda, our webmaster Frank Barbalace, Rena Borwitz, and Tom McGrady. Special thanks to JBTV's Jerry Bryant. Music is created for us by independent artists Roger Pauley and Jerry Herbert. Of course, we have to take a moment to thank the stars of this edition of Motorsports Unlimited. Janine Lauschat, Patty Borwitz, and our host, Bill Wildt. Me, I'm Samantha Bentley, looking forward to riding along with Bill on the return trip. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
This program made possible in part by support from the Chicagoland Toys for Tots Motorcycle Parade held on Western Avenue in Chicago, the first Sunday in December.
This program made possible in part by support from Jimmy's Red Hots, located on Grant Avenue and Pulaski Road in Chicago.
This program made possible in part by support from ABC Auto Parts, located on Ashland Avenue at 138th Street in Blue Island, Illinois.
Motorsports Unlimited is produced by Bill Wildt, president of the Motorsport Advancement Crusade.
This program made possible in part by support from Copy That, located in the County Farm Plaza at County Farm Road and Army Trail Road in Carroll Stream, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from Bridgestone Firestone and your local Bridgestone Firestone tire retailers.
This program made possible in part by support from PB Food Products, located on 47th Street at Western Avenue in Chicago, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from J.C. Whitney & Company, located just off I-80 at the Utica exit in LaSalle, Illinois.
Motorsports Unlimited was created to raise public consciousness, understanding, and appreciation of the motorsport community and their activities. You can contact us by email at msutv.com, or you can write to Motorsport, P.O. Box 66242, Chicago, Illinois, 60666. We enjoy hearing from our audience. Please let us know what you think.
I hope by now everyone realizes this trip is not about a motorcycle ride. It's about possibilities. It's about dreams fulfilled. It's about life after 60. It's about rediscovering something. Join us next week on Motorsports Unlimited as I reflect on the experience as I return.
So that's it, another edition of Motorsports Unlimited and the lovely ladies of motorsports. And be with us next week because we'll have something real exciting. Bill Wildt's going to have the lovely ladies, and just about anything can happen right here on Motorsports Unlimited. Every week at this time, we bring you the best in motorsports. So be seeing ya. Bye-bye. And keep on rocking.